and say hi to everybody?
Sure. Hi. Buenas tardes a todos. My name is Adela Naranjo Bernabe, and I coordinate the services for our undocumented students at Cabrillo College. So I'm so happy to be here. Gracias. Thank you to this collaboration. Gracias a esta colaboración, hemos podido ofrecer los servicios en el Colegio de Cabrillo. We have been able to offer the services at Cabrillo College.
Thank you, Adela. Okay, Bruna, let's skip to the flyer screen on page 3. Okay, great, thank you. So we have here a flyer about the services that we have been providing, that CAB has been providing along with Cabrillo College and the Dream Resource Program at Cabrillo. We are offering immigration legal services for students, faculty, and staff. And we're in a bit of a transition right now with COVID and getting back into the office. Previously, we were holding office hours at Cabrillo and we're returning to that. We're also having Zoom office hours. And so we have some information here about how you can contact us if you are a Cabrillo student, faculty, or staff, and would like a consultation to begin an immigration case. Aquí tenemos un volante acerca de los servicios que CAB está dando en Cabrillo. Y aquí puede ver las horas de oficina que tenemos. Estamos cambiando todo un poco por causa de COVID. Antes de COVID teníamos horas de oficina en Cabrillo físicamente y ahora estamos regresando a eso, pero también tenemos horas por Zoom y estamos haciendo consultaciones de esa manera. Next slide. Okay. And here, just kind of introducing our legal team, we have many accredited representative staff, and we have also 2 staff attorneys, myself, Lily Sturgis, and also Matt Weisner, our legal director. But Ben and I are the ones that you will be meeting with face-to-face if you are a Cabrillo student, faculty, or staff and need help with an immigration matter. So here's Ben here, and here is his email address. And here I am, and here's my email address, should you have any follow-up questions. Aquí le presento los dos abogados que trabajan en esta colaboración entre Cabrillo y CAB. CAB tiene varios abogados y también representantes acreditados por el Departamento de Justicia. Pero si usted es un estudiante de Cabrillo y necesita ayuda, puede comunicarse con Benjamín o conmigo, y aquí están nuestros correos electrónicos. Let's go on to the next slide. And I apologize, it is kind of disjointed, doing things in English and in Spanish, but it's kind of the best way to just make sure that we've got everybody, we've got some inclusivity. So this is our mission statement. La misión de CAB es asociarse con la comunidad para eliminar la pobreza y crear un cambio social a través de la defensa y los servicios esenciales. The English portion. And our mission at CAB is the Community Action Board of Santa Cruz County. I'm sorry, I jump in sometimes, I get a little bit overexcited. That is the parent organization, and SCIP, the Santa Cruz County Immigration Project, is our immigration team within CAB. And CAB's mission is to partner with the community to eliminate poverty and create social change through advocacy and essential services. We'll go to the next slide. Tenemos 6 programas, como puede ver aquí. Tenemos el programa de asistencia de alquiler, el programa de pago de emergencia de CalWorks. Tenemos servicios de empleo que se llaman Alcance. Tenemos al Centro de Jornaleros en Santa Cruz, en Live Oak. También tenemos el Centro de Servicios de Recursos de Davenport. Y también tenemos el proyecto de inmigración del Condado de Santa Cruz, donde es que yo trabajo. Go to the next slide, please, Bruna. Thank you. So we have the 6 main programs that we offer at CAB here. We offer homelessness prevention and essential services. And under that umbrella, we offer rental assistance and emergency CalWorks payments. And under our employment and reentry services, we offer day worker center in Live Oak. And then we also have a program that's Alcance, and that deals with all kinds of different employment services. And then we have our team, which is the Immigration Legal Services. And here we have the Immigration Project, which is where I work, and then the Thriving Immigrants Initiative. We also have community building and youth development. And under that umbrella, we have the Davenport Resource Center. Next slide, please. El proyecto de inmigración del condado de Santa Cruz está localizado en Watsonville. Y estamos enfrente de la placita. Si conocen la placita, tal vez saben que hay un edificio azul muy grande y estamos en el segundo piso. Proporcionamos servicios legales de inmigración a todo el condado de Santa Cruz y el Valle de Pájaro. También al condado de que es San Benito y también de Monterrey. Damos servicios sin cobro a los estudiantes de Cabrillo, y en el momento estamos renovando aplicaciones de DACA, y aquí tenemos el número de teléfono donde puede hacer una cita para renovar su caso de DACA. Next slide, please, Bruna. Thank you, Bruna, for doing all the slide work. The Community Action Board Immigration Project, you'll hear me switching kind of in between the 2 names. We call ourselves SKIP. That's been our name for a very long time, but we're also kind of changing. And we have been using the name Community Action Board, the Immigration Project, quite a bit. We started in Watsonville in 1987. So we've been doing fantastic work for a very long time. SKIP offers services at CAB. So that's in downtown Watsonville. And then also we have been offering services at the Day Worker Center in Live Oak since 2018. Pre-COVID, we were offering services in-house at that center, and soon, hopefully, we'll be able to return to that. We also have immigration legal services in our Davenport Center, and those have been offered there since 2019. And pre-COVID, we were in-house at both Cabrillo in Aptos and in Watsonville. And we are moving towards bringing those services back, but we do have the services virtually via Zoom right now. And this is our beautiful building. So if you've ever seen this building, we are on that 2nd floor. We'll go on to the next page. Okay. Tipos de servicios legales que nosotros proporcionamos. Hacemos renovaciones de micas y permisos de trabajo, renovaciones de DACA, solicitudes de ciudadanía, peticiones familiares, aplicaciones para ajuste del estatus de residencia, residencia para víctimas de violencia doméstica, lo que se llama VAWA, también estado protegido temporal, lo que decimos TPS, proceso consular, la visa U, también la visa T, preparación familiar o planes de cuidado de hijos. Y por el momento no estamos aceptando casos de asilo ni de defensa de deportación. Next slide, please, Bruna. Okay, so here we have all the different legal services that we provide at SKIP. We do renewals of green cards and work permits, DACA renewals, citizenship applications, family petitions, applications for adjustment of status. So that's an application for lawful permanent residency. We do consular processing. We do Violence Against Women's Act cases, so otherwise known as VAWA. We do temporary protected status, otherwise known as TPS, U visas and T visas, and we also do family preparedness and childcare safety plans. At the moment, we're not offering asylum or deportation defense help. Next slide, please. All right, so now we've come to the heat of the main issue that we're going to be talking about today. And I'm going to be giving you a little bit of a background as to how we got here, where we are, and then what is next with DACA. Entonces, vamos a hablar acerca de DACA ahora. Vamos a hablar un poquito acerca de dónde estábamos. Vamos a hablar también acerca de dónde estamos y también acerca de dónde vamos a ir en el futuro. ¿Dónde estábamos? Next slide, please, Bruna. Where we were. Next slide. Okay. Entonces, vamos a comenzar en el 18 de junio de 2020. Entonces, hace un año. Estábamos en ese momento esperando que la Corte Suprema nos diera alguna información acerca del futuro de DACA. Como muchos saben, en ese momento no sabíamos lo que iba a pasar con DACA. Estábamos un poco estancados desde el 5 de septiembre de 2017. No podíamos entregar peticiones iniciales. Los permisos de viaje ya no existían y no sabíamos lo que estaba pasando con DACA. El 18 de junio de 2020, la Corte Suprema dio su decisión y fue acerca de 3 casos conciliados y declaró la Corte lo siguiente, que la Corte sí tenía el poder de revisar la decisión del Departamento de Seguridad Nacional, lo que nosotros llamamos DHS, y podían revisar la decisión que el departamento hizo acerca de DACA, de poner fin a DACA. Y también la Corte dijo que el proceso utilizado por DHS para poner fin de DACA fue ilegal. Next slide, please. So before June 18th, 2020, the status of DACA was really up in the air. As of September 5th, 2017, DACA was kind of at a halt. We could do renewals, we couldn't submit initial applications, advanced parole was off the table, and everyone was kind of waiting for the Supreme Court to give a decision so that we would know what the future of DACA would be. On June 18th, 2020, the Supreme Court finally did issue their decision on DACA, and in a decision that consolidated 3 cases, the court held that it did have the power to review the Department of Homeland Security, or what we call DHS's, decision to terminate DACA. And it also held that the process used by DHS to terminate DACA was unlawful. Next slide, please. Okay. La Corte Suprema declaró que la terminación de DACA por parte de DHS fue arbitraria, perdón, nunca puedo decir estas 2 palabras y menos las palabras juntas, arbitraria y caprichosa en violación de la ley federal, y encontraron esto por 2 diferentes razones, pero lo que tenemos que ver en este momento realmente es que Inmigración dijo que la manera en que DHS llegó a su decisión a poner fin a la ley de DACA no fue correcto, fue ilegal. Okay. Next slide, please. All right. On June 18th, 2020, the Supreme Court did finally give their decision, as I said. And they stated that DHS's termination of DACA was arbitrary and capricious in violation of federal law, which means that the way that DHS got to the termination of DACA was unlawful. And basically it came down to a weighing of factors that the court felt that DHS had failed to do. And one thing that I would like to point out about this is that the court did not actually say that DACA could remain, right? What it said was that the way that DHS got there to ending the program, that was unlawful. So it was kind of still a limbo status for a little while. Next slide, please. Ok, entonces la Corte dijo que DHS no pudo poner fin a DACA porque la manera en que lo trataron de hacer no fue legal. Pero no dijeron que DACA tenía que seguir, solamente que en la manera en que DHS intentó cerrar el programa fue ilegal. Entonces, lo que realmente pasó en ese momento fue que nosotros, los representantes y la gente tenían que continuar a luchar, que la lucha no había acabado en ese momento. Okay? So what did this all mean? We got to this decision with the Supreme Court, and where did it leave us? What did it mean? So again, what I said was that the Supreme Court did not say that that DACA really could remain. It really just said that the way that DHS tried to shut down the program was unlawful. And what it told us, right, the community at large, what it told representatives was that the fight wasn't over, that we had won for the day, but there was still more fight left in us, and there was still more that we were going to have to do. Ok, ¿cuál fue el desgloso? ¿Qué significaba todo esto? Las solicitudes de renovación podían continuar. Los beneficiarios de DACA permanecieron protegidos de la deportación y siguieron siendo elegibles para los beneficios relacionados como sus permisos de trabajo. Se podían aceptar nuevas solicitudes de DACA. Se permitió nuevamente los permisos de viajes por DACA, y los permisos de trabajo regresaron a ser por 2 años de validez en vez de 1 año de validez. Next slide, please. So what was the breakdown? After the Supreme Court decision, where were we? And it's important to note that it took us several other court cases to get to this last breakdown. The Supreme Court made their decision, but like I said, it still kind of left some things up in the air. So there were a few other court decisions to get to this point, this breakdown, which meant that the renewal applications could proceed normally. DACA recipients remained protected from deportation and remained eligible for the related benefits like work permits. DACA applications, the new DACA applications, so new first-time initial applications were then accepted again. Advanced parole for DACA recipients was allowed again. And we returned to 2-year work permits instead of a 1-year work permit. Next slide, please. Ok, entonces, el 20 de enero de 2021, en este año, el presidente Biden inició una orden educativa reafirmando el programa de DACA. Perdón, cuando estoy nerviosa, algunas veces el español se me queda un poco estancado. Entonces, más que nada reafirmó el programa de DACA, y Biden, el presidente Biden dijo que iba a hacer diferentes programas o introducir diferentes programas que iba a hacer el programa de DACA más fuerte, y que iban a hacer esto porque sabían que había un caso en el futuro que tal vez pudo cambiar el futuro de DACA. Lo que no pasó es que no se dijo exactamente qué iba a hacer o qué iban a hacer, y desafortunadamente no se introdució antes de esa orden de la corte que acaba de pasar. Next slide, please. So January 20th, 2020, there was an executive order put out by the president, President Biden, reaffirming the DACA program. And mainly what it did was just try to solidify the DACA program and put some more faith behind it. So it made a lot of declarations that were already there, but kind of just tried to fortify it. And then it also put forth some language saying that the Biden administration was going to introduce something to try to strengthen DACA and to protect DACA recipients, specifically because there was going to be this court decision that we were waiting on. And we wanted to make sure that the program was protected before that case. Unfortunately, that was not introduced in time, and we're going to get to what that then meant. ¿Dónde estamos ahora? Entonces, el 16 de julio, hace unos cuantos días de este año, un juez en el Distrito Federal de Texas Andrew Hannon, dijo que el DHS violó la ley federal cuando creó el programa de DACA en 2012. El juez Hannon dijo que el DHS puede continuar procesando las renovaciones de DACA y puede aceptar nuevas solicitudes de DACA, pero no puede procesar ni aprobar esas nuevas solicitudes. Entonces, para clarificar, el juez dijo que los casos de renovación pueden continuar. También dijo que se pueden aceptar nuevos casos iniciales de DACA, pero que no se podían procesar ni se pueden aprobar. Entonces se pueden entregar, pero se van a quedar ahí congelados. Eso es lo que eso quiere significar. Next slide, please. So where are we now? So remember that I said that in January of this year, the Biden administration put forth an executive order to try and strengthen the DACA program. And one of the reasons was we had this case that was going to be coming down, and we were all kind of nervous about what the outcome would be. Well, that case, the judge in that case gave his decision on the 16th of July in the Texas Federal District, and that was by Judge Andrew Hannon. And he ruled that DHS violated federal law when it created the DACA program in 2012. And so he held that DHS can, for the time being, continue to process DACA renewals, and it can accept new DACA applications, but it cannot process those new applications, and it cannot approve new applications. So this gets tricky, right? Because you're reading this and you're like, what does that mean? So it means that renewals can continue, that you can submit a new, brand new, never before applied DACA initial application, but that if you submit it, it cannot be processed and it cannot be approved. And so until further notice, if you did try to apply right now, the case would kind of just be in limbo, would be in a frozen state for some time. Next slide, please. All right, so, perdón, en español, ¿qué significa esto? Esto significa que si usted en este momento tiene DACA, todavía DACA es válido. Usted tiene su DACA todavía, puede continuar a renovar su DACA sin problema. Si tiene una solicitud de DACA inicial pendiente, en este momento existe una congelación infinita en esa solicitud. Si es elegible para DACA, pero aún no ha presentado la solicitud, inmigración puede aceptar esa aplicación, pero no lo puede procesar. Si tiene un permiso de viajes o lo que se llama advance parole a través de DACA, todavía está válida está válido ese permiso. Y si tiene DACA y una solicitud de permiso de viajes anticipada pendiente, inmigración también lo va a procesar. Next slide, please. All right, so where does this leave us? Where does this new court decision leave us? What does it mean? So it means that if you have DACA now, it's still valid. DACA still exists. Your DACA for the time being is secure. You can renew it. There's no issues with persons who currently have DACA. If you have a pending initial DACA application, so it's your first time applying, you've never had DACA before, and you've already submitted an application, there's an indefinite freeze on that application, which means that there's not going to be any movement until further notice. If you are eligible for DACA, but you have not yet applied, USCIS, or what we call immigration, can still accept your application, but they cannot process it. They cannot grant it. And if you have advanced parole through DACA, it's still valid. If you have DACA and a pending advanced parole application, USCIS will still process it. So you still can apply for advanced parole. And if you have a petition that's pending, you can still be approved. Okay, preguntas pendientes. Entonces, hay algunas categorías de personas donde todavía no se sabe los resultados para esas personas. ¿Qué va a pasar con ellos? Y uno de ellos es si uno tiene DACA y que se va a vencer y deja que esa aplicación se venza por más de un año, no se sabe realmente si esa persona va a poder renovar. Y la razón por eso es que la ley dice que si alguien que tiene DACA deja que su aplicación se venza por más de un año, esa persona tiene que entregar una aplicación inicial, no puede renovar. Entonces es el mismo formulario, pero es otra cajita que se tiene que poner y hay otros documentos comprobantes que se tienen que incluir. Entonces, como eso va a ser una petición inicial y no una renovación, no se sabe ahorita lo que va a pasar con esas personas. Entonces, lo importante es saber que no se debe de vencer su DACA, debe de renovar antes que se venza y más que nada, si es que se va a vencer, no deje más de un año antes que usted intenta renovar de nuevo. Otra pregunta es, ¿se puede permitir a los beneficiarios de DACA que viajan con permiso anticipado volver a ingresar a los Estados Unidos a su regreso? Entonces, la pregunta allí es, ok, tengo DACA, ok, tengo el permiso de viaje que se llama Advanced Parole, ¿me van a dejar regresar al país si viajo con eso? La respuesta pensamos que es sí, pero como es tan nuevo todo esto no se ha visto. No tenemos casos a decir sí, definitivamente. Entonces es una pregunta que todavía tenemos que ver cómo inmigración va a manejar eso. La otra pregunta es, ¿qué sucede si el DACA de una persona se vence mientras que una solicitud de renovación está pendiente? Entonces, otra vez, no se sabe exactamente qué se va a pasar con una persona si se vence su DACA mientras tanto que uno está esperando su renovación. Entonces, para salir de la pregunta número 1 y salir de la pregunta número 3, la respuesta es que uno debe de renovar su DACA entre 150 y 120 días de que se venza su DACA. Eso es lo importante aquí. Next slide, please. So, outstanding questions. We have a lot of answers, but we still have a few questions that remain outstanding for our DACA folk. And one of them is, what happens to somebody who has had DACA, but then they let it expire and then they let it lapse for more than a year? The question is, can they reapply? And the answer here is unclear. And the reason for that is that if a DACA recipient lets their DACA expire for more than a year, the language states that you cannot just renew. At that point, you have to submit an initial application. And as we said, the initial applications right now are going to be held. They won't have a decision made on them. And so it's unclear right now if you let your DACA lapse for more than a year, if you'll be able to reapply. So the important thing is to not let your DACA lapse, right? Don't let it lapse, and certainly don't let it lapse for more than a year. Another outstanding question is, can DACA recipients who travel on advanced parole be allowed to re-enter the United States upon their return? And I want to say that the obvious answer is yes, they can, right? But the problem here is that it's so new. This decision is so new. It's less than 15 days old. We don't know what's going to happen upon return. We don't have case studies yet. So the answer should be that that person should be allowed to return to the United States without a problem. But definitely check in with a representative first, an trusted immigration representative first, before you leave, just to make sure that everything's going to be okay on your case. But the answer is, it should be that you should return without a problem. The next question is, what happens if a person's DACA expires while a renewal application is pending? What happens then? And we don't have answers to that right now, but again, the answer should be that the DACA should continue. But what is really important here, and the way that we can answer definitively question 1 and question 3, is to not let your DACA expire, and to also ensure that you apply within 150 to 120 days of your expiration date. So the way to calculate that is to look at your DACA card, look at your approval notice, and see when it's going to expire, and then count backwards 150 to 120 days, and that's your window. That's when you should be reapplying to ensure that your DACA does not expire. Okay, next slide, please. Ok, y ahora, ¿qué ha pasado ya después que la Corte ha dado esta decisión? Entonces, la Casa Blanca hizo un anuncio, también el Departamento de Justicia, no, de DHS, hizo un anuncio, USCIS, lo que llamamos inmigración, el programa que acepta las aplicaciones también hizo un anuncio, y más que nada esos anuncios fueron casi lo mismo, diciendo que piensan que van a apelar la decisión de este juez Hannon en Texas. También que van a tratar de corregir los problemas que el juez encontró con cómo se anunció el programa de DACA, y que están cometidos al futuro de DACA. Entonces, todo fue muy positivo, pero por el momento no hemos visto acción. Next slide, please. So I'm going to consolidate the next couple slides because they're all very similar. We'll kind of just go through them really quickly. So what has happened since this decision on the 16th? So the White House, the Department of Homeland Security, and USCIS have all made statements about their commitment to DACA, and essentially saying that they're going to appeal this decision, and that they're also going to put forward proposals for different rules on DACA in the near future. And so mainly what that probably is going to look like is fixing the problems that the court found with the way that DACA was introduced in 2012. Entonces aquí está lo que dijo el secretario de DHS. Como puede ver, es muy similar a lo que dijo la Casa Blanca. Next slide. So here is what the Secretary of DHS said. And like I said, what the Secretary of DHS said was very similar to what the White House said. And you'll see that the next one is very similar to that as well. Y aquí tenemos lo que inmigración dijo también, y puede ver aquí que es muy similar a lo que dijo la Casa Blanca y también DHS, y que todos han hecho una decisión a fortalecer DACA en el futuro, y que van a estar luchando todavía, y que se va a apelar el caso, pero todavía no tenemos más información que eso. Next slide, please. So here we have what the acting director of USCIS announced. And like I said, it's very similar to what DHS and the White House stated. They're basically all echoing each other's voices. And that lets us know that there's a lot of strength behind DACA and that there's a lot of fights. But we don't really have any information yet as to what is going to be done. Probably what's going to happen is that they're going to publish new information through the proposed rulemaking procedure, and then that will kind of like fix the problems that were found in the creation of DACA by DHS. So I think that's probably what's next, but that's a guess, right? We don't really know that yet. Next slide, please. Ok, ¿y ahora qué? ¿Qué hacemos ahora? Y lo que yo diría es que en este momento ahora aplicamos presión. Como dije, las mejores formas de avanzar son curar las deficiencias encontradas por la Corte en el caso del 16 de este mes. Y como estaba explicando, esos son los problemas que la Corte encontró con cómo se anunció el programa de DACA en 2012. Sería de curar esos problemas. Y la otra cosa sería que el Senado debe de aprobar la ley de promesa y sueño americano. Eso se introdució creo que fue en marzo de este año y sí ganó en el Congreso, en la Casa, pero todavía ya se mandó al Senado, pero está estancado allí. Y tenemos que hablar con los senadores para asegurar que sí van a aprobar esta ley. Creo que eso sería la mejor manera de hacer esto. Y regresando a curar los problemas que encontró la Corte, también eso es una manera de incluir a más personas en la ley de DACA, o tal vez incluir o quitar algunas de los requisitos para elegibilidad. Entonces, sería una oportunidad de hacer el programa más grande e incluir a más gente. So what now? What can we do now? Now we apply pressure. So the best ways forward, we think are twofold. The one would be to cure the deficiencies found by the court on the 16th of July. So that would be through the rulemaking process to submit DACA for comments and do the procedures correctly, the way that the court would have wanted us to do. And one of the things that would come about if we were able to do this is that we could expand DACA. It's an opportunity to expand. We could include more people. We could change the dates of the requirements. We could maybe include parents, right? There's so many things that could be included to expand DACA. And so it is an opportunity. The other thing that could happen is that the Senate could pass the American Dream and Promise Act. That was introduced to Congress in March and it passed in the House, but it has been sent to the Senate and it has basically gotten stuck there. And there's movement and pressure to have it hit reconciliation by August, but before the recess, but we don't know if that's going to happen, right? So what we need to do is really apply pressure to the Senate to make sure that something happens there. All right, next slide. Aquí tenemos algunos recursos que recomendamos. Como ustedes deben de saber que hay mucha información en la comunidad y algunas veces nos ponemos a pensar, pues, ¿quién puedo confiar? Y aquí tenemos un recurso de United We Dream. Es una agencia que es creado por y con inmigrantes. Entonces, recomendamos ir al sitio de web de United We Dream y leer toda la información que tienen allí. Y así se pueden informar acerca de las novedades de DACA. También tenemos un recurso aquí que se llama el Immigrant Legal Resource Center, el Centro para Inmigrantes. Y ellos hacen mucho trabajo en la comunidad y hacen como anuncios y dan muy buena información que es fácil a leer y entender acerca de novedades de inmigración, no solamente de DACA. Entonces aquí le tenemos el sitio de web donde se puede informar más. So we have some resources here. One resource that we always recommend is United We Dream. It's a really wonderful organization created by and really run for and by immigrants. And it's really a grassroots organization, and they put forward some really great information about DACA. So we encourage you to check in with them and read the materials they have. And it's a great resource to keep updated with all the new things that are happening with DACA. Another resource is the Immigrant Legal Resource Center. They put forward really comprehensive, thorough updates about not just DACA, but all kinds of immigration updates. And they put them together in these really concise, easy to read updates. And it's a great way to make sure that you get good information that is going to be accurate. Si tiene preguntas, aquí está el número de teléfono de CAB, de el proyecto de inmigración, y nos pueden llamar a hacer una consulta o hacer sus preguntas. And if you still have questions, we have here our telephone number, CAB's or SCIP's telephone number, and you can call, and we now have consultations, and you can call and get more information about those. ¿Tienen preguntas? ¿Quieren comenzar con preguntas? Do we have any questions? I don't see any questions in the chat.